Is this an adventure or what? We don't need unexplained phenomena. I hope you guys are enjoying this journey we're taking you on. I know you come expecting to hear about big cats, cryptids, UFOs. We will touch on some of that, but I think it's worth sharing some of this for you, don't you? There's only 2 living souls up here today.
Because I can see it in my mind, I can see it in my head what I saw, but I can't describe.
Our eyes was closed, like a brightish light in my face, and I just felt paralysed.
Someone said there's something out there, so we had a look. It looked like a walnut. That's the only way I can describe it.
It was like it had loads of tiny little windows all over it, and it had lights in those windows, but not a light that illuminates.
Anyway, we were ushered into this lounge. This fella come in, he said, whatever you saw was a weather effect.
And everything is definitely silent. There's no sea, there's no wind, there's no night noise, because, you know, there's foxes all over here. There's nothing.
Hello everybody, welcome to Sunday live stream. Hope you're all good. And I'm not going to say I hope you're all warm, because I think majority of you will be, especially if you're in UK, because it's red hot even at this moment. But yeah, all good. I've had a good weekend. I hope you guys have as well. And let's look forward to the week ahead. So not a lot to report from Eastern North Yorkshire coast as regards occurrences that have happened to myself, a team of people that go up there, not last week anyway, and not for the last few weeks, but you know, we're ever hopeful and we know it, you know, it's potential to happen. But I found myself in Broxer Forest on Wednesday, which I really enjoyed. I spent considerable length of time in there, met up with Dan and Jane, and Patrick came with me. I'll tell you a bit more about that in a moment. But yeah, let's just have a quick look in chat. I think Lee's doing moderating, and so is Gemma, so thank you. Luby, Lisa, Karen Behrman, good to see you. Margaret Webster, Martin Tierney. I'm sure I saw Mia Girl earlier when I nipped in, so hi Mia Girl, always good to see you. Linny will be in, Mrs. Linny maybe. Banana Joe, right, okay, Stargazer Eternal, Tony Dixon. Let's have a look what we got here. 200 people, see, I'm not going to do it, am I, guys? But Sober Carper, Rod, let's have a look. We've done a little bit of Lisa. I can only see a few names here, see people, so I think Fortian's in and Karen's in, Ginger's in, Julie Selves. So I want some questions, please. I want them in capital letters. What did you think to Jim Penniston last week? I enjoyed speaking with him, I must admit. And, you know, there's conflicting stories and reports, but I think the core, or what we've got to take away from Rendlesham is that I think all of those men saw and experienced something. And the fact that some of them have got different opinions about what they saw, I don't mean it doesn't mean anything to me, but it doesn't surprise me. You know, I went into, like I said, into Broxer Forest on Wednesday and spoke to a couple who'd seen something really, really unusual, which just adds a little bit more anecdotal, but adds a bit more meat to bone for the other people that have been bold enough to report what they've seen. And it was a great report. And no doubt when that little bit of film comes out, somebody else might watch it and feel a bit more empowered to, you know, actually get in touch and share a bit about what they saw. There's a question here already, and let's have a look. Kenny, is it Ken anyway? So thank you. We'll just call you 343. No offense there. Hi Paul. Have there been many cryptid sightings? There have been many cryptid sightings in your area over the years. Do you not think there's a portal somewhere in your area? I wish I knew. I really wish I knew. It'd be lovely to, you know, I know a lot of people sort of flash these names out. Oh, there's a portal or some kind of doorway. But all we're dealing with are names for something that a thin area. You know, I don't mean I prefer to use that term, but some kind of thin area where our reality touches another. And, you know, and it's easy to say a portal exists or a doorway. We're just splitting hairs, aren't we? But maybe that's what it is. But the fact is that a lot of things of a strange and unusual manner do present in that area. And that's why when I said at the start, you know, 2 or 3 minutes ago, you know, there's not a lot been happening in the last 2 or 3 weeks, but it doesn't matter. We genuinely, I don't mean we're not bothered in a blasé way, but we genuinely realise that it has the potential to happen. And when it does, it's absolutely stunning. It's incredible. I think Chris Maxon as well. Linda, let's have a look. Studio 211, Galba, we've done 14, and Ginge, London Girl, and Rocket. And let's just have a look. I just check there's no more questions. I've got a few stories to share. Dragonborn's got a question there. We'll have a look at that in a moment. First of all, this before we get to Dragonborn's question, let's just put it up. Let's do that. Let's do it. Many people, myself included, think you're the best researcher out there. I've not read this, by the way, but I'm glad you put it up. I put it up out there. Would you give us your thoughts on what these animals are in the electromagnetic? Would you give us your thoughts on what these animals are, as in electromagnetic creatures or real flesh and blood? Could they be both? I don't know. I think there's a little bleed through of Rick Allen in that question. Maybe, just maybe. And when I read the electromagnetic, but I don't know. That there's definitely something physical to what people are seeing and experiencing, unless it's got the ability to make us think that we're hearing branches cracking and the footsteps, heavy footfall. Yet then we've got this other element when people claim they've seen these things, are this floating, almost as though it's on a conveyor belt. So there's the lack of actual physical motion. But then we jump out every week. I jump to Broxer and Jimmy and Steve because it just blew me away, their sighting. But they heard it breathing. The absolutely enormous lung capacity of this thing that was so guttural that they thought at one point early in this encounter that it were actually growling at them. But are they electromagnetic creatures? I don't know. It's probably a little bit above my head, that Dragonborn, or real flesh and blood. I think there's something tangible to them when they're here. And I always jump back to, the American Native Indians and the Skinwalker. And when I spoke to Larry Sespooch about it, when I were looking into the Flixton werewolf reports and the comparisons, he said that these things have the ability to slip in between worlds. We know they're only words, but that's all we've got to use to describe anything, isn't it? All we have are words. There's no tangible scientific proof of this. I just know that when I'm listening to all of these reports en masse, and there are lots and lots of them now from sort of fixed locations. I don't mean like a pin in a map and that it's that actual spot, but an area that's pretty in close proximity to everything else, and we get independent witnesses. I think we have to attach some truth that there's something highly unusual happening. But Larry told me that he thought that he believed these things just slipped in and out of out their world to ours, and when they were in our sphere of existence, and that's my wording, not his, and I can't remember what words he used, then they had to sort of obey and act within the laws of whatever it was in our world. It might seem too much and too easy an explanation for some people if you're looking for it and thinking, wow, what a load of rubbish. But if these people are seeing what they're seeing, you'll come up with a better explanation, unless they're having some kind of psychotic episode or some hallucination, sometimes en masse, sometimes as a collective of more than one person. So there's something to it. Maybe it could be a mixture of both, Dragonborn. I really don't know. I wish I did. Let's have a look. What's the scariest thing you've seen, Paul? That's a great question, Lisa, isn't it? And I think that as a question, if you put it to everybody, somebody will all relate to something that's frightening. I mean, it doesn't have to be paranormal, does it? For some people, it could be spiders. You know what I'm saying? For some people, a phobia to something can be absolutely terrifying. Probably one of the scariest things was walking back, 10 or 12 years ago from Danes Dyke, for no apparent reason, and this fear just descended on me. You'll have heard me talk about it. And a guy came up to Cliff Tops last week and had a similar experience, told me about it, allowed me to film him, so we've got his audio, his audio and film of what he saw and experienced, and the similarities. And is that the precursor to a full-blown event of something much bigger? I don't know. Or is that an event in itself? But the scariest thing I've ever seen, that's not what you asked, is it, Lisa? Because obviously that were a feeling that were impressed upon me. Scariest thing I've ever seen, probably as a little boy, and when you're just seeing those things, as a little child, seeing something that's, for want of a better word, alien. And I don't mean they were aliens; they could have been demons. But seeing them in your room on a night, and few and far between. I don't mean every night. I don't mean every week. I don't mean every month. But I saw them throughout my childhood, from 4 years old, and they said 4 o'clock, losing the plot, from about 4 years old to probably 13, 14 years old, and then it's kind of petered out. That was terrifying. When you wake up and you realize you're in the moment, you're involved in something and you're immersed in something, and you've not chose that, whatever it is, that situation that you're immersed in, and it's awful. So let me just jump to this, because as anybody, we'll throw this out to you guys. We've got nearly 300 people in chat. There is just under 300. Has anybody been experiencing anything strange, as in time anomalies, over the last few weeks? And forgive me if I don't get to it, if there's a reply saying yes, or and this happened. But there's been a few here that I've been slow to sort of write down and note. It's just a few things have happened afterwards, thinking to myself, I wish I had have done. So on Wednesday, I met myself and Patrick Daniel, he may be in chat. We went to Broxer Forest to meet Dan and Jane, who'd seen this strange thing in the forest, which we'll get to shortly. And as we're driving there, I'm looking at my clock on car, and anybody who knows me and knows cars knows I don't drive a car hard. They last me years, but I don't look after them. You know, I don't clean them. I do out. I'm not really great with cars. Let's put it that way. So if clock changes, hours go back, time goes forward or backwards, I don't bother changing it. And I noted in week that my clock were telling right time, which I thought were odd, but I didn't give it loads of thought. I just noted it. And as we're driving to Scarborough towards Broxer, I looked at my clock and I said to Patrick, I said, what time is it with your clock? I mean, with your watch? 8:30. So that's telling right time. Obviously, it meant nothing to Patrick. I says, that's been an hour slow now for God knows how long. I've never bothered altering it. It tells right time at least once a year, doesn't it? So that was that. Never get it a thought. We get to Broxer Forest, park up at Reesty Bank, go into the forest, spend a few hours with this couple. Then they go. Then myself and Patrick then spend some time in forest, set off back home. Clock's an hour slow again. Might be just some glitch. Fair enough. That's good. So that was that. Later that night, after coming home, end up on the cliff tops. I ain't got my phone with me at the moment, but I ended up on the cliff tops, and sometimes just have a little wander off on my own. And I picked my phone, got my phone out of my pocket and looked at it, and it said 21:56. And I'm looking at it. It's not changed. It's nothing's. I've not turned it off. I'm looking 21:56. I'm thinking, God, where's that time gone? I ain't got time now to go for a little wander. I don't want to do that now. And as I'm looking at it, visually, it slipped back to 20:56. I saw it do it. Is that possible? Yeah. And I told lads on cliff tops, and I think Amanda were there as well. I'm not certain, but I saw that happen. So I thought I'd throw that out there. I wrote it down. I thought I wouldn't remember, but I wrote it down. Look, I thought I'd throw that out there just to see if anybody else has been experiencing any little glitches, you know, with time. I found that interesting. There might be a perfectly rational explanation, but it didn't. I didn't misread it. It said 21:56 and slipped back to 20:56. I see Clifftop Pete's in blue shift. Man like Dave. Dennis White, 40, we've done 40, and Phil Morgan, good to see you, Phil. Zero Dawn. When I say good to see you, it's only because I do actually know Phil, and some of you guys, you know, it's great to have the support, and maybe we'll get to know each other as well over time. Right, let's have a look what this one says, shall we? Paul, you said you felt fear on one of your sightings. Do you think these creatures go into predator mode and you can feel that targeted feeling? Well, good question, isn't it, Christopher? I'm not sure if it's predator mode or if it's a creature. I don't know what it is. It could be some man-made tech that's imparting this fear. Although I've got a story to share with you guys shortly. Let's have a look. Yeah, and that's from 1956, and it has not all the elements of the fear, but it has all the elements of the lower silence and everything else. So I'm not sure, but something impresses a fear. Do you think, I'll throw it out to you guys, do you think that it's something that's triggering the fear elements within our body composition? That's what it's triggering. Is it what some people call infrasound? Or not people call, but is it infrasound? I really don't know. All I know is that what I experienced, Michael, who came onto the cliff tops a few weeks ago, when he described where he was and when this feeling came on, well, where I was. That's strange, isn't it? You know, it's got to be. You can't say it's anything but strange. But predator mode, I don't know. I really don't know. And this place isn't teeming with some kind of. It's not cryptid paradise. It's these things that people have seen or are seeing are few and far between. I dare say, though, over the years, there's a lot more people seen and experienced these things and had no platform. I'd had nowhere to share them. You know, obviously, Truth Proof is not the only place in the world where people can come and share stories of unexplained nature, but it is a place where, as a team, we are visiting a location where things of an highly unusual nature have been known to take place. So, and it's bringing people out of the woodwork, and that can't be a bad thing. I've had loads of reports, you know, from a place called Reesty Bank. Reesty means rancid, and I've always wondered why it received that name. Somebody in North Yorkshire might be able to tell me. But Reesty Bank is very close to where Jimmy and Steve had their experience in 2018. And when I say very close, we're talking about probably a mile away. And I met this couple on, let's just get rid of this phone sec. I met this couple with Patrick on Wednesday. And it was great to meet up with them. And they shared their story, or primarily Dan shared his story. His wife saw it as well, but it was Dan that wanted to share it because a few months ago, he stood at his back door. I'm not going to say what he was doing, maybe let his dog out, I don't know. But he stood at his back door and he sees a strange light in the sky. He's not seen a UFO before, and to my best of my knowledge, from what we spoke about on Wednesday, he'd not seen anything prior to what he saw in 2019. So he saw a strange light in the sky and sort of questioned whether he'd seen a UFO, then went onto internet and started looking if anything had been seen in the area. And guess what? Truth Proof came up. So he found himself looking on the Truth Proof website and on the Truth Proof YouTube channel and realized that the place he walks his dog with his wife has got reports of big cats and has got cryptid reports. And something that he saw in 2019 that he'd never spoken about to anybody except his immediate family, it just suddenly became very relevant. And he were good enough to contact me. And we went in there, we met up with myself and Patrick. And Patrick's pretty level-headed. He'd have said if he thought these people weren't genuine. He wouldn't have said it to their faces, I don't think. But, you know, neither would I. Well, I'm not that rude. But we both came away feeling that we'd spoke to some very genuine people. Excuse me. So we get in there. We're walking down this logging road, and we'll break the story down. You're going to hear it in much more detail from the actual horse's mouth, so to speak, at some point. And so as he's walking down the road, this logging road, trees either side, it's beautiful, sort of pine, and it's a mixed woodland, but primarily there's a lot of pine. And he saw a big dark shape on two legs on the left-hand side of the logging road. In his words, about 130 yards away. He said, but it was big. He said he thought it were a big man. He could see the dark outline of it. And even in daylight, guys, when you get into these trees, I don't mean it's night, but it's pretty dark. So it's on edge. And he's looking at it. Then it comes out on two legs into the middle of the chalk path. And all the time he's walking towards it. And he says he now got to about 100 yards away. He says, I can't see ears, I can't see some detailed face. You know, he's just laid it out. He's not, to me, he doesn't sound like he's added anything to the story. He's quite happy to say, I can't see ears. He says, but it looks like his head's very close to its shoulders, as in no neck, and it looks like it's got a bit of a shaggy mane. He's done some AI pictures of this, tried to reproduce it and got it as close as he can to it. I don't think he thinks the mane on his pictures is as thick as it was on this animal. But it's there. It's got a huge long tail sloping down to the ground. And he's watching it, and it's stood in the middle of the path, and he's watching it for about 30 seconds. Brings it to his wife's attention as it's going towards a tree. And it kind of reaches up. And I don't mean it's clawing the trees, but it reaches up onto the tree. Now, he's done these pictures, and he's been kind enough to give me a few of these pictures. Remember, these are just images that he's put into his AI, whatever he's using, and described what he's seen, but he's had quite a lot of attempts at it, and he says, I think this is as close as I can get. So I haven't scanned them, guys, so just put up with that. So what do you reckon to that? North Yorkshire. As soon as I saw it, I thought, when people talk hundreds of years ago, the Barguest, or the Bearguest, or the huge phantom dog, the huge bear that people were reporting around these parts. What do you think? Is that incredible? We know it's not the real deal. We know these are AI impressions of what he thinks he saw. So then he said it stood up and it's sniffing the air. And it almost looks feline, cat-like. But he insists it's on two legs as it walks out from the trees. And is that incredible or what? What do you think, guys? You know, I'm just blown away, because to me, okay, we haven't got it on film, you know, because we're also going to get people saying, you're talking about that, but did they get any pictures? No. Any film of it? No. But have other people reported the same thing in the same area? Yeah. Do they know each other? No. So you know, I just think it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And when it dropped down, it looked more cat-like. And he believes it were about 7 foot tall, and his wife echoed the same. He's 5'10". Patrick walked well down the path and stopped where he thought this animal creature cryptid was. And Patrick had a stick in his hand, I believe it were, and he held it up. And this guy said, stop, stop. And we got to about the height. And it's at least 7 foot tall. So he doesn't know if it were aware of them. He doesn't imagine that it did notice them, but who can say? They'd got their dog, which was on a lead. This thing, after it had been at the side of the tree, there was a picture of it at the side of the tree, guys. Just bear with me. Yeah, that one. After it had been at the side of the tree, there you go. And remember, he said it had a mane. You know, that kind of throws it away from a cat for me. It dropped down onto all fours and disappeared into undergrowth. So they then decided they weren't going no further. They were quite unnerved, even though they don't think this thing had seen them. They were quite unnerved. So they would start walking back the other way or on another path. As they're walking back, they met some neighbours coming opposite way who lived close to them. I'm not going to say where the area these people live, but they lived close to them. And I think that Dan said to the neighbours, did you see that animal? Did you see anything? And they said that their greyhound, which they'd got with them, which were at their side, were in the woodland and yelped loudly, made a big yelping sound, came charging out of the woodland and stuck to them. It wouldn't move. And they didn't see an animal. They just saw a big black blur go across the path in front of them. Just a blur. And so you've got that story. Obviously, this guy's allowed me to record him. So we've got all that as we're walking and talking. So it's fabulous. And that, you know something, that's the reason I go to these places, because it never ceases to amaze me when I hear people recalling. And what's he got to gain by sharing that? And what's his wife got to gain? What's Jane got to gain by sharing that? I'll tell you what she's got to gain, nothing. And neither has Dan. But they're bold enough to come forward. And, you know, they're not teenagers. You know, they've got a good lifestyle and what have you, but they're bold enough to come forward and say what they believe they've seen and experienced. That's what makes this job worthwhile, guys. Let's have a look. Let's go down a little bit. Angela, can I ask let's have a look. I've not read these, Angela, can I ask what happened to you when the UFO took you? I don't think, to be honest with you, Ange, and I've no proof of any of this, but I've no recollection of ever really, some people claim that they've sort of had some kind of abduction experience where they've been taken aboard some craft. All I can remember, and even from the 1960s, 66, shall we say, which I don't know, I was born in 62, 66 to the 1970s, or maybe 80s, so when I was about 14, all I can remember is these things being in the room, in the bedroom, and you're in the moment. You're actually immersed in the moment. You're always going to be ready for them. You're always going to be ready when these things come. And if anybody's had these experiences, I believe they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Because as a little boy, you're frightened to death, or a little girl, you're terrified, and so you're waiting. It only has to happen once. That trauma only has to happen once. And once is enough to put you on some kind of hyper alert till you can't even hold your eyes open anymore and you finally go to sleep. But what happens is you find that you're already in the moment when it's happening. You're never ready. But I don't remember being taken anywhere. And then obviously 1993 to 1997, it started again. Once again, I don't remember being taken anywhere. I've got a vague memory of something, but it's only vague. These are proper memories of them being in the room, and I don't know. I'd love to say. Well, I wouldn't love to say, but some people have got memories of being on board some kind of craft. I've none of that. I really don't. But thank you. Let's just have a look. Great questions as well. Thank you. Appreciated. What are we doing here? Let's have a look. Hi, Paul. Hope you well tonight. Have there been any sightings of all black shag or padfoot in the Lancashire area where I am? Well, to be honest, Bev, I'm sure there will be, and there'll be people out there, maybe somebody in your area now, who's maybe watching, not necessarily this, but looking at podcasts, reading books, because we're all searching for answers for our own little pieces of the puzzles, and trying to make it fit. So, and what are you dealing with there, Bev? Seriously, do you know what I mean? The padfoot, you're actually dealing with or reporting and talking about something that is no different to what we're talking about, just different names, different dialects, and we create different names for these things, for the same things. And I don't necessarily mean what you're seeing is the exact same one, but these things just seem to, they've definitely transitioned time and come through folklore, and it's amazing that they're still being reported today, isn't it? That's Dave Barker's in. Good to see you, Dave. London Girl, Dan Reeve. Let's have a look. Dan Reeve, what did they look like, please, Paul? Are we talking about the things that I saw in childhood? Well, it's a bit crass, isn't it? But grey aliens. But I'm keen to say I don't know if they were aliens. I really don't. And it's the weirdest thing to sit here because there's no two-way communication coming, is there, guys? It's just me talking. But it's the weirdest thing to talk about, isn't it? Because I don't know what they were. And and at 62-year-old, I still don't know what they were. And all I know is that they had the ability to cause extreme fear. And I think that's all they wanted to do, to be honest with you. But let's have a look. Dave K. Hi, Paul. Just watched Wolflands on DVD from Amazon. Thought it was absolutely fantastic, gripping, and I cannot wait for Wolflands 2. Brilliant, Dave. Thank you. I'll pay you later for that that question. No, that's great, mate. And I sent Les some footage this week of something that I'd filmed, and obviously we are going to be on with that. And I wanted Les to just look at what I'd been filming. And whilst I'm on with that, Chris Turner's coming through on Friday, and we're doing a little bit more filming on the documentary that I'm doing with Chris. And he's coming through with Lee, who's doing moderating now, Lee Roscoe. And if anybody's interested, they've got a place available where they're staying There's just one place. If anybody wants to come through and just, I don't know, help a little bit with documentary, all you'd have to pay for is your accommodation. It's not going to be a fortune. But I'm just putting that out there because I spoke to Chris today, and obviously there's just him and Lee coming, but there's enough room if anybody else wanted to come. Just get some details, or if I don't see it, send your email to me later and I'll pass it on if anybody is interested. And it'll be on a first come, first served basis. So there you go. But thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed Wolflands, Dave. Let's have a look. Yes, early hours Thursday. Woke up 4:30. Light went back to sleep 2:30 a.m. Time anomalies. Woke up at 2:30. Light went back on. Went back to sleep. Woke up at 2:30 a.m. Dark. But clock had stopped at 2. Ow. Yeah, it's crazy. Do you know, I wonder. That's brilliant, Jan. I hope we've got a little tripwire going here and other people are noticing some strange time anomalies. And I don't know what it means, by the way, do I? You know, let's have a look. Do you have group treks to locations of interest? I've not done, to be honest with you, no. If I'm being honest, and we sound like real sort of party poopers, but we like to just get within the zone, probably waiting for really dark nights and really cold weather when we know there's nobody about. And whatever it is, we keep calling it the phenomena, whatever it is, it does seem to connect and interact more. But we haven't done. But I tell you what we do, 9809, we always make people welcome. You know, we treat as we find, and if people come up there and they're open-minded, and I don't know, just want to spend an hour or so with us, then we're all as accommodating. Maybe that's our downfall, but we are anyway. Let's have a look. Deb Shaw, always good to see you, Deb. I've been experiencing some weird time glitches at home over the past 2 months. There you go, Deb. Do you know something? As a collective, then we've got 387 people in here now. Why don't we make an effort to note these time anomalies, however trivial they might seem? Because until I'd noticed that the car clock had gone an hour behind before, but I should have noted the time. So we're a bit slow there, weren't I? And there'd been a few more things time related that I'd not really latched onto. But so obviously we've got the car clock on at 8:30 on Wednesday, and we've got the 21:56 anomaly that slipped back to 20:56. So I'm going to be making note of all that now. It might mean nothing, guys, but as a little experiment between us all, wouldn't that be interesting? You know, when we've got nearly 400 people here, and, you know, even if 20 people experience something, wouldn't it be great if there's some kind of connection with the times that it's happening as well? You know, maybe there is, maybe there will, maybe there won't, but I think it's worth experimenting there. And thanks, Deb. Good to see you. Let's have a look. Always look forward to seeing Deb at conferences, and Wendy. It's all good. It's all good. I have experienced several times. Sometimes the clock in my car is 1 hour behind or another forward. After a while, it resets itself. Okay. Well, mine, it just usually, Kirky, mine just stays until time adjusts, you know, and it either goes forward or backwards again, and then we've got a different time. I don't bother with it. I'm so lazy, Anna. Let's face it. Here we go. Selma, wonder if Dane's Dyke was built on purpose to put a barrier or block off Flamborough for some reason. On maps, it goes right across from one side to the other. It sure does, Selma. You know, it's 2.5 miles that it cuts the peninsula of Flamborough Head off. That's 5 miles it cuts off from the mainland. But it's not exactly a fortress. It's not like 60 or 80 foot high. You know, in places, although I dare say 3,000 years ago, it could have been more. But in places, you know, it's only 20 foot to 15, 20 foot. In other places, it'll be 30 to 40 foot. But it makes you wonder why, you know, early man, Neolithic man, invested so much time building an earthwork to cut Flamborough Head off from the mainland. You know, when you think about it, how hard it would have been just to survive, just to find enough food to live. You know, they didn't have the luxury of farming or sophisticated weapons, should we say, to harvest food. You know, it would have been really hard. Yet they had enough time, although we don't know how long Dane's Dyke took to build, but a lot of it was done with these and bone and antler tools. Remember, originally, it's called Dane's Dyke because they thought that the Vikings had a hand in it and built Dane's Dyke. But then when it was excavated in the late 1800s, when they found all the ancient tools and flint tools and bone and antler tools, they realized that it predated them by a long, long time. But why, I don't know. Let's have a look. There we go. I have noticed that the time has gone very quickly, and I have sat down for 10 minutes, but it's been 2 hours. That's gone. It's strange. Maybe you've just fell to sleep, babe. I do that. Only joking. But no, it is odd. But don't they say as you get older, I don't know how old you are, Bev, so forgive me, but time seems to go quicker. And I know that it flies for me. And there's a little story there, but I'm not going to do it. And Michael will be sat smiling wherever he is about a tape measure. And I better do it. Michael. So Michael's working on a car. This in Unexplained Phenomena. So he's working on a car in his garage, and Michael's a great friend and a good supporter of Truth Proof and everything that we're about, Alt Team. We always look forward to seeing him. And when he looks up, there's an old chap watching him, an old farmer, and they get talking. And forgive me if I get this wrong, Michael. And Michael had been about 55 at time, 50, 55, maybe, I don't know, or 50, I don't know. And he startles him, and then he says, how old are you, Michael? And so Michael says 50. Let's use that. So old guy gets a tape measure out and pulls this 50 inches out on tape measure. Then he gets some above it, going up to about 75. So you see all this 50, and then he says, that's all you've got left. And it kind of brings it home, doesn't it? He's told me that story, and I've thought about it loads and loads of times. How much have I not? And I've not got much of that tape measure left, have I? It's frightening to think about, but you've got to laugh. Okay, guys, we're going to do this. I want to do this little story here, and because I can see that there's quite a few questions, and I asked for them. So let's just do this and see where we're at in a minute. So, because we're going back to 1950s. So it's the Jane. I'll just say Jane's encounter. The following encounter. It's a reconstructed account based on a historical interview from the 1950s. It's me that's written this. It's been rewritten in my own words from the original source material, just for the purpose of sharing it with you guys, to be honest with you. Some names and minor identifying details have changed, but most of it is the core of it is accurate, but I've changed just a few names and things just to keep things right for people involved, even though it were 1950s. Right, let's go for it. The Jane Price encounter in a coastal town in North Yorkshire, August 1956. It were actually Filey. So I'm going to tell you that. For decades, Jane had one extraordinary experience. For decades, Jane kept one extraordinary experience entirely to herself. She was a cheerful grandmother with a close-knit family, and she convinced herself that no one else could possibly have gone through what she experienced during the summer of 1956. That changed years later when she happened to hear a radio program discussing UFOs and the people who claimed they had been taken aboard a mysterious craft. Listening in disbelief, Jane realized that others were describing events that echoed her own lifelong buried memories. Encouraged by what she heard, she contacted the British UFO organization and eventually agreed to speak with their investigators. I love old stories like this, 1950s. It's crazy, isn't it? 1956, and it's still relevant if nobody's heard it before, don't you think? And there might be somebody from 1950s who's had a similar experience who'll be sort of encouraged to share. Her story began in Filey, North Yorkshire, where she had been staying with her mother. One warm August evening, Jane and a friend were out at the local cinema. After watching the film, they chose the quick route home across some fields. When they reached the point where the paths separated, Jane continued on alone. She later recalled how unusually still everything seemed and the silence that struck her immediately. Nothing's changed, has it, guys? 1956 to 2026. Last week, Michael on Cliff Tops. First thing that he realised was that the silence, which and it was quiet, but everything had just got quieter. The silence is deafening. Absolutely. Normally there would have been bats darting overhead, but on this particular night, everything appeared to be strangely still and lifeless. Without warning, two tall figures appeared ahead of her. She described them as wearing pale blue, almost silvery one-piece suits. Their skin appeared fair, and they had striking white hair and unusually beautiful eyes. Although their sudden appearance should have been alarming, Jane insisted that she felt no fear. The two figures turned away. Without any spoken invitation, she found herself following them. Oh, it's crazy, that isn't it? Some kind of mind control? What do you think, guys? From that moment, her memory has become fragmented. Give us a second. I've got a fan on here. It's blowing stuff all over. Right. The next clear recollection was finding herself inside what she believed to be a circular room. There were no corners, only curved walls and seating arranged round the perimeter. Several people were already sitting there. Among them, she remembered what appeared to be a woman dressed as a nurse and another person wearing what looked like an RAF uniform. As concern began to replace her earlier calm, Jane's thoughts turned to her young child, which she had left at her home. She repeatedly insisted that she wanted to return. She later described the communication as something entirely unlike an ordinary conversation. Rather than speaking aloud, she believed the thoughts were exchanged directly into her mind. So once again, we've heard of that, haven't we, throughout everybody's encounters with these beings of unknown origin, the mind speak. So 1956, and no doubt much further into the past than that, right into her mind. One of the pale figures approached her and gently placed its hand on her head. She experienced an overwhelming sensation of calm before feeling herself recline backwards. At some point, she experienced a sudden sharp pain in her side, although she never understood what caused it. Okay, one sec, guys. The next thing she remembered was waking in her own bed, confused and distressed. She immediately embraced her sleeping child, unable to explain how she had returned home and how much time had passed. The following morning, her mother remarked that she had arrived home unusually late from the cinema. Yet, she had no memory of the journey back. Rather than speaking openly about the experience, she chose to suppress it and continue with everyday life. Years later, during interviews with the researchers, she suggested they may have been further unusual incidents, including periods of missing time, although she could only provide a few details and no dates. These later memories remain too vague for meaningful investigation. One further detail stood out. Not long after the original incident, Jane became unwell with persistent nausea and exhaustion. She eventually discovered she was pregnant and later gave birth to a daughter approximately 9 months after she reported the encounter. Although she occasionally joked about whether the pregnancy had been a connection to the experience, nearly done, guys, she offered no evidence for such claim and appeared to present it more as a lingering question than a firm belief. Throughout the interviews, investigators described Jane as sincere, measured, and reluctant to embellish events. They acknowledged she was genuine and believed her experience had happened, while acknowledging that the underlying explanation remained unknown. Okay, whether her account represents a psychological experience or an extraordinary misinterpretation of real events, no one will ever know, or something that continues to defy conventional explanation is ultimately left to the reader. Regardless of the interpretation, the report remains one of the most unusual British close encounters accounts of the 1950s, particularly because her description of encountering the other apparently human occupants already seated inside the circular room. What do you think, guys? Do you think she dreamt it? She's walking home from cinema with a friend, and she seemed pretty adamant about what she saw and experienced. I think reports like that are absolutely incredible, and we need more of them. We need more, not just, obviously we want present day. We can't live in the past, but excuse me, if you're sat on an account and you want to share it, we'll change names. We'll even alter some locational places so that it doesn't actually pinpoint you. But let's get that information out there. Let's have a look what 14's got to share with us. Whatever you saw as a child, alien or demonic, the fact remains that there is another realm, another world, and we only seem to see when they decide to see. Absolutely. Do you think, though, 14, and put this to everybody, do you think it's there for us all to see if our particular mindset is correct? As in, if we're in the right, if we're giving out the right signals, I don't know what the correct words are even, but if we can create the perfect state of mind, then we can connect with the unknown other for good or bad reasons. Is this no different to performing some kind of ritual or using a Ouija board? All things that we don't advocate. I need to stress that strongly. But nevertheless, the use of these items, these tools, should we say, to connect with the unknown other, are used, and they're used quite frequently, and people do connect. And it's not the tool. It's not that. Let's imagine it's that. You could pray to that pen. It's the belief within ourselves that we can connect with it. I don't think there's anything magical about the actual board that people use or anything like that. But they decide, they initiate, they decide when something's going to happen. I wonder if that decision, that connection with the human, I wonder if that's decided days, weeks, months, even years in advance. Everything's pre-mapped. I don't know, or whether it's just chance. So yeah, they decide. But I do believe that we can initiate contact. I really do. And, you know, people point to being sick of hearing me will know about that light that we encountered on the cliff tops. And we must have been the perfect combination that night, unless, as 14's saying, that would just wanted to initiate contact. And it could have been one of you or 10 of you, which there's always that possibility. I get it. But, you know, as a collective, we felt that there was some ingredient that night that brought that forward. So where are we now? Let's just go down a bit, guys. Let's have a look. Thursday early hours walk. We've done this one, haven't we? Dark, stop flashing. How? I get it. I've not gone back on your question. It's just come up again for some reason. Let's have a look. Nigel Sheffield. Thank you, Nigel. Really appreciate that, mate. One sec. Let's go down. Right, let's go Dragonborn. Out of all the info you've collected over the years, which one do you remember best and why? There's so many. There's so many reports, and they're all special and amazing in their own way. And I think what we've got to do, Dragonborn, is understand that for everybody who sends in a report, whether it's to me or anybody else, or just writes it up and keeps it for themselves, it's unique. It's absolutely unique. These, you know, they said that there's no snowflake that's ever the same. Everything's structured differently. Everybody's report, everybody's sighting is different. And to the people that have seen and experienced, it's absolutely unique to them. What I do, I don't mean find amusing, but what I do find interesting is that sometimes the experience that someone has is so profound. It's so in some ways life-changing that they believe firmly that is the only way that these things operate. Do you know, am I making sense there? So if you've had an incredible experience, then it can't possibly be any bad experiences, and everything's love and light. And likewise, I didn't really have some great experiences as a little boy or in 1990s, but I do believe that when some people say that they've had amazing experiences, I do believe that's what they've had. But some people are that sort of regimented and stuck in the ways, they won't jump out of it. And they believe that everything is, this is the way it is because that's what happened to me. And that's not always the case, is it? But which one do I remember? Probably Christmas 1970, New Year's Day 1970. That's as bizarre as it gets. And that's been on my mind quite a bit of late, simply because of, and I'm not asking people to say Disclosure Day was brilliant. I know there's mixed reviews on Disclosure Day. And I think, sorry about this, I think depending on your experience with the phenomena, you probably get more or less out of that film. And that's my personal take on it. And so I think that might be part of why people have got mixed views on that film. But why did I mention Disclosure Day? Because Spielberg is putting over the fact that younger people are seeing animals or aliens portraying and displaying as animals to sort of pacify a child and things. And how crazy was my 1970s Two Rabbits and a Guinea Pig story that I wrote about in Night People long before I could have ever known about Disclosure Day. So that one's been on my mind quite a bit lately, because I've been getting a lot of reports from people or emails from people saying they can see similarities. And quite honestly, I can myself. I don't mean with film, but what he's putting over. But anyway, let's move away from Disclosure Day. Let's have a look. What's this? Black cloud above the bed on 7-year intervals. Okay. I'm assuming that's what you've seen, and that must be quite daunting. I remember speaking to a lady who told me that they went on holiday, the lady and her husband. They went abroad and they woke up in their room during the night, and up just below the ceiling in the corner of the room there was a black mass that were all moving, and they laid in bed watching that. Eventually kind of dissipated and disappeared. But I know that's not a black cloud above the bed, but still fascinating, isn't it? And right, let's have a go. Right, Michael P. So evening, Paul. Thanks for your time this weekend. And to Bob. What a lovely bloke he is. Maybe you would like to tell his Men in Black encounter for the folk who haven't heard it. See you all soon. Thanks for that, Michael. I wish I'd not put that question up now. I'm joking. So Michael who's up here for the weekend, wanted to meet Bob Brown, who a lot of you guys will already know. So I spoke to Bob, I gave him a call and said, would you like to meet him? And I ran him up, introduced him to Michael, and they sat down and had a natter and spent an hour or so just talking. And Bob told him about his Men in Black encounter. And to be honest with you, Michael, when Bob were telling it, he were more relaxed telling it to you than, and I think that's probably because there weren't a camera on him. Maybe that what reason. But I can't remember year. Someone tells me it was 2016, 2017, and Bob Brown were living at South Shore, south side of Bridlington. But he'd been asked if he wanted to. You got me telling this story now. He'd been asked if he wanted to dog sit or if he would watch a property while this man went on a cruise. And basically, man weren't being mean. He just didn't want to put his dog in kennels, and he wanted to know if Bob would stay at that property. Well, Bob worked at a charity shop in town, so he used to walk from South Shore every morning, which is a fair walk, to charity shop. Well, this were halfway there, and a nice place, lovely accommodation on Cardigan Road. So he said he'd do this for his friend. But before we get to that Man in Black story, Bob had already told me, because we were friends before he come and lived in above us in one of our flats. He'd already told me that walking to work on a morning, big black car would be passing him, almost an American type car, or he'd be walking up towards Cardigan Road and down these side streets, and the car would be parked up. And he'd noted it. He'd not got no number plate. He'd not noted anybody inside it. He just noted this car. So he didn't think anything untoward at that particular time. So the time comes for Bob to do some dog sitting at this property on Cardigan Road. And I'll just get rid of that. That was just for a sec, guys. And the first thing of note is he's watching TV one night. It's a collie dog, this dog, quite fit and agile, big back garden, 6-foot fence all the way around back garden, a locked gate on side at property front so nobody can get in. And he's watching TV, and there's a little conservatory from back room where he's watching TV, and then garden. The dog's looking up as though it's seen something. It's not barking. Bob looks up, TV's on, no, the lights are off, and he can see the silhouette and outline of what he said. He said it was a figure that looked like Zorro. That's he said it had a hat on, but it's there. He says, and I got straight up and opened the door and I let the dog out. The dog's running around garden barking. There's nobody there. So that's before his encounter, this MIB encounter that Michael's just inflicted on me. So I'm joking, I'm happy to tell it. So he's running around garden. So he's told me this, he's this story. Then he's told me, obviously, the car. And then he rang me up. And I wish I could remember year, but I know it was the same week that the World Darts Championships were on at the Spa in Bridlington. So we'd get the month and everything, but not that it's irrelevant for telling of this story tonight. So he rang me up and he says, will you call into the shop later? Bear in mind, he's not living above me at that time. He says, I want to speak to you. I want to speak to you. I says, okay then. And Bob's always upbeat. Whenever you see Bob Brown, anybody that knows him, if you've been to a conference and you bump into Bob, there's also a smile on his face and he's always happy. And so I went into the charity shop later and normally he'd be up and he'd be shouting, hiya, how are you doing? Nothing. There's people in and I said, you all right, Bob? He went, just wait till everybody goes. And you know, I went shop's relatively clear. So I'm waiting. I wouldn't say there's nobody in, but he's got some space. He said, some people came to house last night. Some strange people. I says, what do you mean? He says, they frightened me. He says, have you got time to come up later? He says, I said, well, what? He says, I'll tell you when you come up. I says, well, yeah, but I'll tell you when you come up. Have you got time to come up later? So I went up to this property. And it's a beautiful house, big detached house on Cardigan Road, which is a nice area of Bridlington. So just to get a breakdown, there's a nice drive, off-road parking. There's a little tiny porch about 2 or 3 foot wide on front. So you've got clear glass doors. All makes sense, this, guys. And then you've got another pair of doors which has got Flemish glass in it, so obscure glass. So front porch, you maybe put your boots or take your boots off and hang your coat up. Do what you want to do, but that's how it is. So Bob says that the doorbell rings, or somebody's knocking at the door. I think he said doorbell rang. Dog's going mad, barking like mad. So he puts the dog in the back garden and goes to the front door, and he can see through the Flemish glass the outline of 2 figures that look pretty crisp. He can't see any detail, but he's thinking police or somebody. And he opens that door, and then he can see them. And there's 2 men stood. I mean, Bob's only, I think he's 5'1", Bob. So, you know, they're going to look tall, aren't they, to Bobby? But there's 2 tall men stood out on the outside looking in at Bob. And he says, what do you want? Can I help you? He says, we want to speak to you. Can we speak to you? He goes, well, what do you want? He says, we know what you've seen. He said the faces, and he said this last night to Michael, they look like porcelain. They'd got fedora hats on, black coats, black suits or dark suits. And he said, they just look so odd, so strange. He says, well, what do you want? He says, well, can you open the door? We'd like to speak to you. So he just opened the latch of the door. He said, and this one of them stooped forward. He said, we're watching you. We know what you've seen. We know what you're doing, and we're watching you. And Bob said, I just shut the door too, really sharp. Shut the other door and said, I ran upstairs. I always makes me laugh, Bob, when he runs upstairs, because he can't run. But anyway, he went upstairs as fast as he could. And it said, and when you get into the front bedroom, you can see not the whole of Cardigan Road, but you can see up the road and down the road. You know, you have a good area to see. Off he goes upstairs, looks out of the window. These men have gone. There's nobody to be seen. What he also noted was that when he went to the door, it was daylight. When he went upstairs, it was dark, which is unnerving. Come on, let's face it. He didn't even realize that at first, but that's what it was. So the next thing, Bob's digesting all this. It's time to go to bed. Now, I know you guys have only got my word for it, but when I get up in the morning, because this property's my property's in 3 flats, and this will make sense in a moment. I'm always up early, but you never beat Bob up. He's in top flat, and I always, when I get up in the morning, if I let dog out, I do anything, I always look up to check his lights on. I think, well, he's okay. We know he's okay. So 4:30 in the morning, Bob's always up. So I know when he's talking about this property where he was, he says, I overlaid. He says, I woke up, he says, and it's about 8:30, 9 o'clock. He said, I can't believe it. He says, but not only that, alarm's flashing. No, sorry, not only that, sorry, alarm's not working. There's no power on in property, and there's the steps down. This guy's a wine cellar. He says, and the electric, the consumer unit and everything is on the steps, it down into the cellar. He said, and I obviously with no power on. He says, so I go down into the cellar with a little torch and I'm shining it onto these steps. Oh, thank you. From my assistant. There you go. So he says, I go down in, thanks, Mary. I go down on these steps to look at it. He says, and everything's okay. All switches are up. She can't work it out. There's no power on. He said, so I flicked them all down, flicked them up, flicked them down, flicked them up, and the power come on. So make of that story what you will, guys. That's, Bob Brown, it probably wouldn't have been as fresh in my mind if Bob hadn't relayed it to Michael last night. And I think I've wrote about it. I'm not sure which one. Maybe book 3, probably. What a good point. Book 3. So anybody who's interested in these books, we say every week, I'm going to make a little advert, and then it gives me a bit of breathing space, maybe to just, I don't know. So Amazon for Kindle versions of these books, truthproof.uk, obviously for the paperback versions, and you can get them via PayPal or eBay. If you want the DVD, what me and Les made, Wolflands, Amazon Prime, or the above, truthproof.uk, and anybody who ordered a book or a DVD, if anything were ordered today, it'll be in post tomorrow. That's how I operate. That's how it always has been. And so that's that. Excellent. So you've got the Bob Brown story, and I don't know what you guys think to that. I think it's fascinating, really. And Bob's had a few weird experiences while we've been going on those cliff tops. And I noted that 2 of the experiences, Gemma's doing moderating tonight for us. And, well, for me, for a dad. And she's not into unexplained phenomena. She's doing this because she's doing me a favor. Lee is into unexplained phenomena, but Lee's doing me a massive favor. He always comes on and does moderating. But sticking with Gemma and Bob, and I've told this story before, but we'll do this because I think it's relevant, because there's a little ingredient I've not noted before. When Gemma were in between moving a few years ago, it was 2020, it was February 8th, 2020, she come onto cliff tops with me and Bob. I'm setting a camera up. You guys know the spiel. You've heard this story. If you haven't, then you listen again. And she's got a torch and she shines it onto a nearby hillside, and there's a white board, A4 sized. And she says, what's that white board there, Bob? And he said, I think it's just been nailed to a post. Bob immediately realizes that there's no post there and puts his torch on it also. And they claim it dropped to the floor and disappeared. Now, reason I'm laboring on this is because I've not really connected with this until speaking to Bob other week. There's another occasion where Bob is taking a picture of a kestrel over that hill, same hill. And it's winter time, there's no cropping field. And as he's taking the picture, a large shape appears on the hill. Just appears silhouetted on the hill, but it's not night, it's daytime. It's brown, whatever it is. It almost looks like somebody crouched, but it's big. And instead of taking a picture at kestrel, he just and takes the picture. He's got this picture. But what's interesting, when we talked about the light visitation that we all saw and experienced last year, and the ingredients that created that light visitation, we don't know. We'll never know. Maybe it was just random. Maybe it don't matter how many people were there. But what's interesting, what if there were the perfect set of ingredients? The ingredients that night were Bob and Gemma were there when this anomaly appeared on Hill. Bob and Gemma were there when this square of light appeared. Do you know what I'm saying, guys? Is this just a quirky coincidence, or is there a little bit more to it? Your guess is as good as mine, or am I rambling? That's the thing. So you're shaking your head. I can hear you or see you. Let's have a look. Wow, looks very familiar. I don't know what that means, but we've got to have some questions here, guys. I see Mel Suiters in. Good to see you, Melly. Good to speak with you the other day as well, mate. CG, Commanding General, Brett Beasley, Margaret Webster. We've done Blue Shift Robs, but it's always good to see Blue Shift. That's a question from Lee. how did feedback go on 5 live stream? Oh, 5 a.m. live stream, yeah. Really good, Lee, because the few of you guys will already know that I did a live stream on Thursday at 5 a.m. And I didn't want to advertise it because I don't want to make it where I'm sort of fixed and I think, oh, God, I've got to get up and do a live stream now. That's fair, isn't it? Let's face it. But I might do one next Thursday. It depends how I feel. And I'd already made a little thumbnail up for when I did it. All I had to do was put date on it. So I woke up at 4:30, made a cup of tea and I went on. No advertising whatsoever. And we've got 94 people watching it. You know, and I realised that there'll have been people that don't normally visit our live streams, but it went okay. As far as I can see, or ascertain from, you know, what we saw, Lee, it went okay, thank you. And we'll do some more of them. I don't mind, but give me an idea, guys. You know, you can send me an email if you want, or you can put it in here and I'll have a look later. But give me an idea, because I was thinking we need, if we're going to do some early ones like that now and again, let's say we do 2 a month or 1 a month or 4, I'd like to do a slightly different theme. And where I normally cover, although a lot of the reports, bulk reports, are other people's reports, but they're new, they're great because they've never been told before. It'd be good to, so let's do Rendlesham Forest. Let's do, you know, the Phoenix Lights. You know, let's spend an hour on some big cases. And, you know, you could do 20 or 30 live streams and you'd still not have run out. I thought that might be a good thing to do. What do you guys think? If you've got any ideas, let me know. Because, as I say every week, it's your live stream as much as it is mine. Without these questions, without you guys, we've got nothing. Right, let's have a look. Right, Brett Beasley. Paul, I had an experience many years ago when I was travelling to work. It was early morning. I noticed a car travelling in the opposite direction on me, dual carriageways. It was. Right, We've probably missed a bit there, Brett, but I'm intrigued. Seriously. You can see how much I read these questions before I put them up. Let's have a look. Thank you very much. Really appreciated. Let's just keep going. Well, I'm putting this Brett up one again. I haven't read it, so we might have a bit more. Hi, Paul. I had a weird experience travelling to opposite direction, dual carriageway on my way to work, and my doppelganger was shocked. I'm taking it then that you saw somebody that looked like you, a doppelganger. How incredible would that be? And what does that mean for us all? Because obviously then you're not in front of me, Brett. So, but I think we can all read between the lines. And you've seen somebody that just looks like you. I don't know if I'm going to even get to hear this, but what it dressed like you as well, or he. It's crazy, that, isn't it? And the doppelganger, the person who's looking back at you, looks just as shocked. Wow, that's interesting. Can you imagine if you had been twins, Brett, and not known? But there you go. Let's have a look. 40. I don't know, Brett. That's one. I honestly, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. I don't necessarily mean tonight. But I think we'd all want to know a little bit more about that. Whatever that bear entity was, it's native to the area, Paul. Somehow, or for some reason, it's attached itself to the location. Is it for food or is it stuck between worlds? That's the $1 million question. Well, as soon as I saw those pictures, you know, what Dan had done, those AI images, and, you know, and he didn't just chuck a few words in. I think he spent a bit of time to get it to as close a likeness as he could. As soon as I saw that, you know, and I'm thinking it's what I would imagine what people call the bear guest to look like. And it's just ironic that, you know, probably 4 mile away from where we were, maybe no more than 6, but as I said, 4 mile, you've got East Ayton. And in 1921, a writer called Howard Brearley was writing, and he were writing about something from ancient times called the Bar Guest of East Ayton. You know, and I found this in an old archive in Bridlington Library. And he's writing about that in 1921, over 100 years ago. East Ayton, 6 miles away from where this man saw that, and talking about this monstrous bear-like beast that was in the forests and woodlands close to East Ayton over 100 years ago. And when he was writing about it, it was a story that he was retelling from the past. So it just shows how far back in time these accounts, they're not legends. The legend, we're still breathing life into the legend, aren't we? Let's face it. Let's go. Dan Reeve, good to see you, Dan. Tony Worrell, good to see you, Tony. Bev Wilson. Right. Paul, it's a big black wolf-like animal, black shag, padfoot, tall on black legs, red eyes, not far from where I live. It's been spotted a few times. It's brilliant, Bev, honestly. And I don't know if you've seen it yourself, Bev, please email me and get in touch. Or if you know anybody that's got any first-hand accounts of that, I'd love to hear about it, or your views on it. You know, it's everything's relevant. It's crazy because it's just a different location, but the things of a similar nature are being seen. Let's go. Let's have a look down here. Lord Jim Dandy. Paul, do you believe in other dimensions here on Earth? I've no scientific knowledge, have I really, that could... You can say you believe in something, but that is it just blind faith? All I can say is that there's something's presenting from time to time and interacting with people, myself included, and maybe a lot of you guys in chat, you know, and I think to myself, to just say, oh, it's another dimension, it's a portal, it may be wrong because we don't actually know. I'm not even sure if men of science know. So I'd just prefer to say, yeah, I know that there's some reality or some external reality that's over and above or over and below ourselves, and it's there and it's here and now at times, and then it just has the ability to slip just out of existence. Whether that's a dimension or a portal, I don't know. Shall we do another story? Do you want to, guys? I wish I could see reaction to say, I hope there's people saying yeah, or whether I should just be going through questions. But I'm going to do this. It's from a guy called Tom. I'll not say his surname. I think I can, but I won't do. I've just called it The Strange Encounter. Hi, Paul. It was 1996, the first year I went on a motorcycle trip with my younger brother and a classmate of his. We went to Cordoba, Adulasia, I think that's what it says, where a good friend of mine lived and worked as a bioengineer. My brother and I had motorcycles from the 70s. I had an Honda CX500 and he had a Kawasaki Z400. Right, I used to have a 400, a Ford Honda, funnily enough. That was a lovely bike. My brother's Kawasaki was an air-cooled twin-cylinder engine, which had a habit of overheating after riding for about 100k kilometers. 100k, yeah, kilometers. This determined our way of traveling. We only took smaller roads and national routes through France. We didn't have enough money to pay motorway tolls, by the way. We did this so that we could stop immediately when his engine began to splutter. One sec. So we did this immediately. The engine began spluttering. On the evening of the third day, we reached the foot of the Pyrenees, somewhere behind Santa Maria. Okay, guys, bear with me. As was the usual case in the evening, we looked for a spot or somewhere to spot while camping, somewhere far away from civilization to camp peacefully for the night. While riding up the hills that heralded the mountain range, we saw a small road to the left between some trees. After about 300 to 400 meters, we judged that we were far enough from the main road and stopped for the night. The right-hand side of the road was flanked by a barbed wire fence. First, there were small trees, and behind them lay meadows. To the left was a forest. At first, it was more or less level. Then further on, it went downhill. From the moment we got off our motorbikes and more or less came to our senses, we didn't feel entirely right. We didn't feel at ease. After we had set up our tent, we decided to park our motorbikes all the way around the tent, as if that guaranteed safety. Right, okay. We did this rather instinctively, with little conscious consideration. Okay, guys, stay with it. After having a quick meal and sharing a bottle of wine among the three of us, also we drank rather quickly, we started hearing noises down in the forest, the cracking of branches. At first we sat listening, somewhat dazed, but it quickly became clear that whatever was causing the sound was coming straight towards us. And they weren't small branches it was breaking at all. Judging by the sound, they were very thick branches, the kind perhaps only a heavy bull could break under its hooves, and even then it would take some doing. Earlier that day we'd been talking about bears living in the Pyrenees, the only place in France where wild bears lived, and that was naturally still fresh in our minds. Christ almighty, can you imagine that? I'd be terrified. Thinking that a wild animal was coming towards us, brackets, a bear, we fled headlong into our tent. My brother and his schoolmate quickly lay down in their sleeping bags on their mats. Meanwhile, the bear was getting closer and closer. Myself, I was still on my knees when this thing was standing next to the tent. Obviously, they're inside, they can't see it, I would think. As it got closer, we clearly heard that it was no ordinary animal, and it was bipedal. We clearly heard one foot after another. I never in my entire life heard a similar loud breathing sound as I did then, not even in the zoo. The chest cavity from which the sound came from must have been enormous. The breathing was so pronounced, like someone who is extremely angry and is snorting. When I was finally able to lie down as still as possible, extremely slowly, agonizingly slowly, with my trembling body, and I painfully held my breath, a mental image appeared in my head. It seemed implanted to me. It was not my thought. It was a mental image from what was standing next to our tent. The image was that of an enormous prehistoric man. I didn't see if he was clothed or not. I saw the chest and face, hairy, but not as hairy as Patty, as in the Patterson-Gimling footage. Okay, guys, give me a minute. I want to emphasize that I just suddenly received this image, and it was razor sharp. Everything happened together and incredibly briefly. When I lay down, I was lying close to my brother's face, so close to my brother's face, and he whispered to me very, very slowly and pronouncedly, "I've never been so alert." That was the last thing we all know. All three of us went unconscious completely at the same time, at that moment. The next moment we remember, we were waking up in the morning, all three of us together again at the same moment. Without talking much, we got up immediately, quickly packed up the tent and drove on straight away. I think the whole job was done in 5 minutes. For the rest of the trip, we did not talk about it again. And I didn't think about it again either. I didn't think about it for years on end. How does that work? You know, so many people talk about having these profound experiences and then absolutely forgetting about them until there's a trigger years later. And it happens. You guys know what I'm talking about. It was actually only about 3 years ago that I, together with my brother, were on another camping holiday in the woods in France, and I regained this memory. What I want to emphasize is that I never experienced such intense fear in all my life, and I have never experienced it again. Not even as a 16-year-old in nighttime Marseille, surrounded by gangs. Not even paddling back to my boat, far too distant from the shore, above Shark Reef in the Red Sea, and I have a severe shark phobia. And not even in other precarious situations. It was an improbable fear that all three of us felt, and then it was projected onto us. And you know that these are little elements that I'd never really thought about till speaking with Steve in Broxter Forest, and when Steve described the fear, and he said it weren't his fear, whatever it was that were looking at them, it was putting the fear onto Steve. And this guy's saying something similar, really, isn't he? the improbable fear projected onto us, just like that image in my head of who was standing next to me. You might be thinking now, Paul, he didn't see anything. Those guys in that tent were three cowards who just got scared by the sound of a wild boar, although I doubt that after what I've seen of you. Of course, I have no proof whatsoever, but I know that it was. I know what it was, and that's what I'm telling you. Also important to me, this was in 1996, before the time of the internet, before YouTube, and the worldwide focus on the paranormal, Bigfoot, Dogman as we know it today. I didn't know anything about the subject either. You know, what do you think, guys? I just think it's absolutely brilliant. Thank you for sharing that with us. And you guys know now what this guy knows, or what he experienced. A little bit of it anyway. Let's just move on a little bit. And I love these stories. One sec, guys. Let's have a look. I hope these questions are okay, because I don't read them. Hi, Paul. Quick question. Do you think certain cryptid reports seem to have disappeared? For example, the Woodwows, the Wild Man, it seems like the UK Bigfoot during medieval. Yeah, they've not, to my mind, they've not disappeared. We've just created new terminology for the same things. You know, you've only got my opinion. I'm not forced to be right, but that's what I think. You know, the dog man, I don't think you can speak to a cryptid type research now. Everything's a dog man. You know, everything, you know, wolf-like is a dog man. And you'll hear people go on podcasts retelling what they've seen, and they'll emphasize, they'll say, I think it was a werewolf that I saw. And people immediately want to change it. No, it was a dog man. We're only splitting hairs. We're only talking about names. I think the werewolf, where the confusion lies with the werewolf, if everybody's thinking of Hollywood movies and silver bullets and full moons, and the reports of the werewolf type creatures predate the Hollywood movies and all of that nonsense by hundreds and hundreds of years. Anybody interested in werewolf and werewolf lore, there's a book that you can still buy. It's back in print, called I think it's Werewolf Lore and Legend by Montague Summers. That's an interesting book, and it goes back hundreds of years into accounts and reports. So that's interesting. So the Woodwows, the Wild Man, I think we're probably dealing with the same thing. You know, it's just different words, and maybe it's not in vogue. I think it's in Hackness Church. There's two seats in Hackness Church. I've not actually been in church and seen them, but I know they're in there because I've seen pictures of them. I think the pious chairs, the for poor people, or they were, but up underneath the seat of the chair, they've got carvings on them. I think they're called miser cords. Somebody's going to correct me, but I think that's what they're called. But when you look at the carvings on these chairs, they're of Woodwows. They're of the Green Man. They look like Bigfoot. They're really, really interesting. There's three that are carved under seats of these chairs. And this is just in a little church. Where's that church? This is why I'm bringing it up. Where is Hackness Church? It's at the heart of on the edge of the Forge Valley. Where's the Forge Valley? It's literally a mile from Reesty Bank, where we got this story from Dan the other day. It's literally a mile and a half, 2 miles from where Jimmy and Steve and the other guy had their crazy experience in the forest. And you know, and there's clues, there's little breadcrumbs of clues everywhere. It's just digging into these places and historic archives. You know, we'll do a live stream on the area of Hackness. I'll get some information together, because they had a saint. I think it was Saint Hilda from Whitby, but she ended her life at Hackness, and the abbess. That's what she were, an abbess, and. I'll get all information together rather than give you fragments of it today. But she saw visions and things occurred, and it's incredible, because when you think about this is the edge of the Forge Valley. This is where all of this strangeness happens, and we've got incredible things happening hundreds and hundreds of years ago on a biblical scale. So we'll do something like that. We'll do a stream on that later. So okay, guys, let's just Fatty. I say it every week, Fatty bakes cakes. Well, I saw it other week, and I think I'm Fatty that eats cakes, because I just love cake. Hi, Paul. With this hot weather, I remember as a child reading and hearing about spontaneous combustion. I know you deal with other unexplained phenomena as it suddenly stopped. blacked out by midday. I don't know. It's fascinating, isn't it? And I do remember seeing the books and documentaries as a child about the alleged spontaneous human combustion, and then people had done experiments, hadn't they? And apparently the slow burning of the body composition and things. I'm not saying that there is no paranormal or strange element to it, but I don't know. I don't know enough about it. Fatty bakes cakes. Well, worth putting question up just to say that a few times, but I don't know enough about it. Sorry. Great name, by the way. I like that. Thank you. And let's have a look. Chris Mack. Good to see you, Chris. Maybe you should redo the time experiment in the colder months. It might be worth doing, but the problem is that you've got to go up and keep checking them timepieces. But then again, we're spending enough time up there. We could do that. So that might be worth doing. And we aren't going into great detail, guys. Chris has put we might be worth doing the time experiments. A few years ago, I'd spoken to fishermen on cliff tops, rock anglers, who told me that they'd had periods of they didn't say missing time, but what they had said was that they'd gone up thinking it was probably 9 o'clock. They'd been observing the lights in the sky on a few occasions, and then looked at the watches to pack their gear up, and seemingly they've lost an hour or there's 2 hours gone, and they don't look at it as missing time. They just think, God, that time's gone fast. So I did what I called the time experiments along the cliff tops, setting two analog digital watches, quartz watches, set at the same time in sealed containers. And I had 8 watches, and there were 400 paces apart. And I knew where I'd put these watches, and I used to go and check them. And I actually found 2 watches that had stopped. They must have stopped at some period of time, and they both stopped at the same time. I've got all information about that, and I'd wrote about it. Just in not all 8 of them, just 2. Now you've got 2 watches in one box operating together in unison. Maybe not to exact second, but let's say you set them all at 1 o'clock or 1 p.m. Then you imagine that when you go back to them later and they've all got good batteries in, one could have stopped, but they both stopped at the same time. So it might be worth doing something like that. It were almost like a eureka moment, that, but it was difficult because I had to go up on my own quite often to check these watches, and you either go up in night and you're never going to find the things, because it's not as easy as you think, burying them discreetly enough that people aren't going to find them, but not too heavily buried that you're having to root through everything. And if you had to go up at night, it'd be awkward. So, yeah, okay, Chris, that's something to think about. And I see why you're talking about it with time that we're about Lindsay Beach. Good to hear from you, Lindsay. All the time glitches backwards, or do some go forwards? Yeah, maybe they do. Do you know, Lindsay, and I've got your email as well, thank you. There's a fisherman who were fishing out of Bridlington Harbour who got advanced time. I'm reluctant to say an hour and a half, an hour. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they were going to a fishing ground called the Ten Rex, taking a fishing party out. They'd set the plotter on the boat, and obviously I'm sure it was going to take them about three and a half hours to get to fishing ground, with a stop in between to do some mackerel fishing and what have you. And they got there 1.5 hours early. And when they got there, so that's a time jump, isn't it? We're jumping forward in time. But when they actually got there, everything was different. The skipper's son was that guiding the boat because he got his head down for a sleep. And when he woke him up, he says, "We're here." He said, and it was just different. He said he said it were golden. Everything were golden. And the sea were flat, and it were like oil, but it weren't oil. And the radar was finding nothing from 10 miles right up to 50 miles. And it wasn't finding anything. The radio communication weren't working. And so had they slipped through into some other kind of realm? Once again, we're only dealing with words and terminology. We've got no hard and solid proof of what, maybe we need another vocabulary or invent new words for what these people are seeing and experiencing. But he said his exact words were, I thought we were worrying. I mean, I know this guy really well. He don't worry. He don't panic over things. Pretty laid back. He said, but I thought we were in eye of a storm. He said it would just, normally we take buckets of bait out with us to catch the fish, obviously. and we've got a cloud of seagulls that follow us out because there's food. There's no birds. There's nothing. There's silence. The lower silence, this stillness. He said, the guys on the boat said, I thought you said it were going to take us X amount of hours. He says, and I just went, bait up, as in put your bait on and get fishing. He says, and we were pulling fish out. They were pulling fish out. He says, but I were frightened. I were worried. I couldn't understand it. We've got no communications, no radio communication, nothing. He says, and then, suddenly the water, the sea started to become a bit of movement, a little bit choppy, and it became as it should be. And we're kind of in the zone again. Radio crackles into life. The radar pings off whatever they'd set it. I think they were about 10 to 15 miles up Empton Cliffs, and that's what they'd set it. But they'd gone right to 50 miles. That was its limit. But it weren't finding anything, and suddenly everything started working. That's a strange one, isn't it? So that, Lindsay, that's a jump forward in time, isn't it? You know. Let me just have this. So, you know, what it all means, I don't know. But how could I? Let's have a look. Point, is that Carol? I'm not sure. I think it might be. Hi, Paul. Great shot about the shapeshifter in Danes Dyke. Car park wearing long coat, brimmed hat. Did you have another sighting by a couple walking the footpath near Buckton Cliffs? Do you know something? There's that many. And I think you're right, and it'll only require a little bit of digging, because I usually leave myself a few reference points to dig these things up, to find these reports. I'll have a look, because that might go with Michael's report, and you'd think to yourself, well, why aren't you remembering that? Well, I'll tell you what you might be alluding to, and I think what you are doing now, and he's in chat now, and we're probably going back to 2014, and this is a guy and his wife, and they're walking up Cliff Lane. So it's not Buckton Cliffs, but it could be this one. They're walking up Cliff Lane, incredibly hot day. In his words, it were cracking flags. It were red hot day. They got shorts and T-shirts on, and they take a right and they go on to Blake Howe Lane, which would mean Blake in Bridlington, Bempton terminology is black. Blake is black. Black Howe, as in burial mounds on the lane, Black Howe Lane. So they're walking along Black Howe Lane on a swelteringly hot day in T-shirts and shorts. And as they're walking up that lane, in the distance, they've been walking for a while. It actually cuts through to Stone Pit Lane. Not that you guys need to know that, but if you Google any of these places, you'll see. He says, but we're walking, we're a quarter of the way up it. He says, and then I think his wife said, oh, look at that in front. And in front of them, not miles away, but a good enough distance away, there's a tall figure in a fedora hat and a long black coat, like a Crombie type coat. And they're intrigued because it's red hot. There's no woodland to left, there's no woodland to right, you've just got open land. Crops in field, maybe corn, barley, but there's crops. And he's going up a little bit of a brow of a hill, and they're watching him. They're absolutely perplexed. They're not trying to catch up to him, but they're watching him as they're walking, because he's just so out of place. And he just goes over at Browett Hill, and they can't wait to get a little bit higher to just keep watching him. And when they get to the top, he's gone. And there's nothing there. There's no roads, there's no cars, there's no streets. It's just farmland. There's nothing, people. Google it. You know, get on Cliff Lane and Google Cliff Lane and then Blake Howe Lane, and you'll see there's nothing there. So they're amazed. They're not looking for unexplained phenomena at all. And they're looking in the sides of the hedges, thinking, has he collapsed? Heat exhaustion, anything. And they spend a bit of time walking up, then they walk back. They're that convinced that this he's got to have collapsed. There's something wrong. They never found him. And that's just a strange encounter from that lane. That might be what you're on about, C26. I think it might be. And as I say, I was spending a lot of time early mornings up on cliff tops. And this man, I stopped my car one morning and he's walking his dog, probably about 5 in the morning. And he's in chat now. And just asked him how we were doing. I don't normally stop car to people at that time in the morning, by the way, but we've been friends for now going on for 35, 40 years. So we've been friends before that. We used to work together. That's why I stopped. And, you know, in all the time we worked together, do you know how many times we spoke about unexplained phenomena? Never. It's just how it was. We're on building sites. So I'm up there. He asked me what I was doing up there, and I told him about these unusual lights that had been seen, and excuse me, and other bits and bats. And to my surprise, he were really interested. And then he relayed this story to me. And from there, myself and this man, we ended up going up onto cliffs for years, and we still do. You know, and it's great spending time with him and everybody else that goes up there, I've got to add. So that's basically his only story prior to that. Prior to going up onto cliff tops, he were there that night. That light visited us. He were there. That light that hit his hand. That's what Chris Mack were looking at, lighting his hand up. You know, and he were there, stood at side of me when voice said Paul. And you know, he's shared a lot of these strange experiences. But I think that's what you're on about there, Pointer. So let's just keep going, guys. All right. I see your name. Right, Paul, had a mind-blowing... Hi, Paul, had blowing on my hands in bed. Now I'm hearing the breath. It's absolutely amazing. Yeah, I bet it is, send them. I bet it really is. And I can relate to what you're saying, and I bet a lot of people in chat can relate to this. And what is it? It's incredible, isn't it? Years ago, and I'll give you an example why I think I can relate to it. I usually go to bed a little bit later than Mary, but 4 or 5 years ago, she were going to bed, and it was usually on a Thursday or a Friday, and she'd get up and said, "I can't sleep. You have to wait till you come to bed." I said, "Why?" And something, she said, there was like a weight coming on the bed. And she could feel it going down on the side of her, and it was just disturbing her, and it happened regularly. And then obviously I were going to bed, and I'd experienced it as well, and we were both kind of nudging each other because we knew it were there, and you could almost feel it, and it didn't. We weren't frightened. So this blowing and breath, although we didn't experience that, I think there'll be a lot of people send them that will have experienced similar things, and it's fascinating, isn't it? And what that tells you, though, well, I don't know what it tells you, but there's a presence. If it can produce air or displace air, no doubt somebody in spiritual circles will tell us how it does that. But if it can displace the air and cause a coolness on your skin, or you can feel the sensation of being touched, then there's a physicality. I mean, are we aiding that? Is that somehow drawing strength from us? I really don't know. And I know there'll be people in spiritual circles who will have a lot more grasp on that than me, you know, because our light visitation has been interpreted as some kind of mediumship type event. And I'm not going to discount that, you know, just because I'm interested in the UFOs and the cryptids. I'm not going to say, oh, it can't have been that, because we're not interested in that. You could be on the money. And that's, you know, I don't mind being wrong. But that's fascinating, that. It really is. Let's have a look. 40 in there. Bev Wilson. It's great questions, guys. Really appreciate it. What's this? I've noticed the sun sets in a different place than it did 3 years ago as the Earth orbit shifted. You know something, Jim, I wouldn't know, but there's a lot of people talk about things like that. And you would think, you know, when there's a UFO sighting or a cryptid sighting and people say they watched it for 10 minutes or 30 seconds. Did you take a picture? Did you do this? You'd think there'd be more pictures of that, though, wouldn't you? I'm not saying it's not true, but anybody who kind of knows their geography and knows east, south, knows the directions of things, if you saw that, it would be easy to get a reference point and it's not going to go anywhere, is it? If you're looking at the sun setting and it's not in place it should be, take a picture with your phone. And do you know what I mean? Man, if you can't take a picture showing your phone, can you, if you're using your phone? But then again, use a camera, I don't know. But the point is, I could imagine that would be easier to get photographic evidence of or documented footage of than a UFO, say, or a big cat or a cryptid. But that I'm not knocking what you're saying, because a lot of people are saying this, and it'd be good though, wouldn't it, if there were more evidence of it, as in visual proof, as in footage, and saying, look, that's that church at 4 o'clock, and that's where sun sets, and now look at it now, and it's literally past that church, and it's not even 4 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? I think we could probably get more evidence of that. That's it. Stephanie, let's have a look. It would be logical to assume that some of the supernatural entities are fourth dimensional. How would we perceive a fourth dimensional being? Is almost exactly what we witness. How would we perceive a fourth dimensional being? Is almost exactly what we would witness. I don't know how we would perceive it. I don't have any of these answers to the questions, and I don't know whether you guys do, and maybe you do, Stephen. I said Stephanie, didn't I? Apologies. I really don't know. Let's just go on a little bit. Tom Vernon. Let's have a look. It's all. If you're in, Laura, I've not seen you, but there's Deborah Jane Easting. Good to see you, Deborah. Lovely to see you, Deborah. Every time, my best friend on the internet. Without a doubt. I hope we meet one day. Let's have a look. Hi, Paul. It's really odd that my car alters itself, Harry. British summertime, but only one day. Just over a week ago, it was an hour slow and I had to change it manually. Forgot until you said. I don't know. It'd be interesting, Jan and Andrew, if a lot of people start... obviously, there could be perfectly logical explanations to what I've been talking about with the 2156 back to 2056. The phone were a Samsung Ultra. It's not done an update or anything. I literally just picked the phone up and looked at time, and it slipped back whilst looking at it. And it kind of rattled me, I've got to admit, because I knew what I'd seen. And I told lads straight away on cliff tops. But I don't know. Right, let's have a look at this. Have you heard about anything about scientists in 1966 sending a weather balloon through a spinning fog in the Antarctic? And when they pulled back the thermometer, it showed January 1965. No, I haven't. It's fascinating, isn't it? Absolutely. There's so many things to research, guys, isn't there? Let's face it. So many things that we could be looking into. And obviously you can't look into it all. I don't know about you guys. You'll have a certain genre of the unexplained that you're looking into. And I've got things that I don't mean I favour, but I like more and interest me more. But if somebody emails me, I always try to do a little bit of research on it. I've got some incredible cases. There's one of a guy's seen this diamond-shaped UFO, and I've met up with him. He come through and met me in Danes Dyke and told me all about it. And another guy called Michael, funnily enough, and what a sighting. And prior to that sighting, he wanted nothing to do with the subject of the unexplained. So something like this, that's fascinating, isn't it? Horses for courses, somebody would find that even more exciting. Christopher, have you ever flashed a laser up at the sky? Get any power-ups or response? No, I haven't got a laser. Pete has one. We don't tend to use them at this time of year if we're up there, simply because it's seabirds and there's birds nesting, so we don't want to disturb them. But I tell you what, we have seen, and this could be just iridium flares, because a lot of the, you guys will have noted that you can look up at night sky and it's just devoid of stars even, or when the star's out, it's devoid of satellites. Then you can look another light, and it looks like looks like looking at something under a microscope, and you're looking at everything just flying about like bacteria. It's absolutely alive with it. But we have watched them at times, and there were one in particular a few months ago. And if guys are watching this, if Lynn is watching, and Pete and Mark and what have you, this thing just flared up. Not so much like an iridium flare where they just flare up and disappear. It flared up like magnesium and just carried on going quite a few seconds and then just disappeared. It were really strange. That were one that I wish I'd have filmed, because we don't film satellites. You know what they are, because there's a lot of people out there that tell you that they're filming UFOs. And, with Psionics cameras, guys, the night vision cameras, excuse me, you can actually film satellites and things like that. And if you wanted to, you could you could, if you wanted to, you could fool people and say, look at this. And because they look absolutely, it blows them up to looking to enormous luminosity. It almost distorts them if you wanted to mess about with lens, but we're just not about that. But you can see it when you look at some footage on the internet and you see what people are putting out there. You can see that that's maybe what they've done on odd occasions. Maybe not necessarily to cheat, but just for a bit of sensationalism. And we're not really into that. That's why for the last 2 or 3 months, we've seen nothing. And we're quite happy to say we've seen nothing. We'd like to say we'd seen something. Okay, Wolflands is available on DVD through truthproof.uk. And yeah, it is. And so are the books. And got some great reviews on Wolflands. There's been people watching it recently. Like I said, when me and Les did that film, we never really thought that there'd be an interest in DVDs. We thought everybody would downloading stuff and everything were online, but people are still interested in, a physical copy of a DVD. And yeah, it's been really enjoyed by people. Dan, thank you. Appreciated. Let's just have a look. Tom Vernon, that's not a question. Tim, what we got here, Tim? There was a lady who rented a room at the house. I saw a being in the bedroom and asked you if there was a history to the house. Did she stay long after? Right. No, we're talking about our house. I get it. Yeah. Did she stay long after that? Did she mention any other experiences? Okay. So the property that we live in, I know I'm repeating myself, but I've got to do just to paint the picture. Huge, 1896, the property was built, and it's just a big Victorian house, beautiful mahogany staircase, really, really nice, or it was in its day. Converted to 3 flats now. Now the middle flat, a lady rented that. She probably moved out about 6 or 7 years ago, and she was in it for about 4 or 5 years. Lovely lady. And we never said anything about the history of the house or anything strange. Why would we? And it makes it more interesting if anything occurs. And she messaged us one particular day, sort of rang me up or text me, I can't remember which. Have you got a minute? Can I come down and have a word? Yeah, come down. Sat down. First thing she said, well, is this house haunted? And I know some of you guys will have heard this, but Tim's put it up, so we've got to do it. To which I said, well, there's been a few occasions where things have happened in the past. And by the way, she didn't know anything about Truth Proof or the books, because just keep that part separate. The person who's in that flat now, if he's watching this, would be amazed because I've never said anything to him. Bob Brown knows who's in top flat. But anyway, I said, why? She said, because last night, she said, I had a visitor in the room. Something came in the room. I said, go on. So she's got a little Yorkshire Terrier, she said, and it was on the bed, at the bottom of the bed. Now, it was a little bit yappy, but the soundproofing in flat, so it never bothered us. She said, but I felt the bed go down, the depression of the bed. She said, so I put my foot out to check it wasn't Buster. That's what they call this little dog. Although a Yorkshire Terrier is not going to make bed go down, is it? But the dog were there, totally silent. So that's one element that's strange. She said, and I've got my back to whatever it was. And it says, and I went, who's there? And this being spoke and said it was called Alexander St. Clair. Not Sinclair, St. Clair. And she said she had a conversation with him, she's not sure what, but doesn't remember the conversation and doesn't remember it finishing. She only remembers the depression on the bed and asking who's there and getting the name, and knows she had a conversation. And that's it. That's the story. And that's fascinating. I mean, incidentally, before that property got turned into 3 flats, that's the same room where they put them 3 holes in my back in 1997. And, I don't mean, I'd never sleep in that room, because I slept in it after that. It's always felt okay, this house. But I think that's what... did she mention any other experiences? No, she didn't. Was she frightened? No, seemingly not. And I didn't go into great detail about the things that had happened. So, just a fascinating account. And Bob's experienced things upstairs in that property as well. And Bob's living room is now where, when we first purchased the property, now we're coming up trying to make it habitable because there weren't even hot water on it property. So I were coming up on a weekend when we first purchased it, and we were just sleeping on a mattress on top floor. And our Sarah, eldest daughter, came up to give me an hand. And that's why I say that in 1993, there'd been a gap from 14 years old just about to 1993. And it started instantly. It didn't start a year in, 6 months in, or 6 days in. The activity just started. It was just like it was meant to be. And that's why sometimes I'll throw that one out. Do you think our lives are mapped out, and the path that we're going to follow is pretty much, you know, that's why some people always get a crap deal in life, and some people just sort of, I don't know, you say if it's everything's milk and honey. I don't know, you know, and we make our own destiny. I realize that there's some people that, I don't know, never want to get on in life, and there's other people that do. But the point is, it's strange that it just started. It's strange that we chose a house where there'd been a lot of activity prior to us moving in. You know, the people that had owned it before us, this old couple, had been involved in all sorts of things in that house. When we stripped all the wallpaper off, there's all sorts of graffiti on the walls, pentagrams and all sorts of sigils and lots of things. Reverend Willis, the exorcist, came a few weeks after we'd moved in as a family. This is after I had spent time working on it, not to exercise, to bless the house. We never asked him to come. You know, all of this was spoken about, by the way, long before I wrote the books. All of this was spoken about while I was working as a joiner on site 20 years ago. You know, so this is not new for Truth Proof and new for books. All of that's been spoken about. But yeah, it's fascinating, because you could probably write another book just on the strangeness that's occurred just in the house, regardless of your family's experiences. Okay, let me just wander down here a little bit. I can't believe time, guys. I've just been rattling on, haven't I? One sec. Luby Lisa, let's do this. Right. Do you ever watch series called No, I haven't done. Alien Connecting to the Mind of the Child. I haven't done. To be honest, Lisa, I don't watch loads of TV. So that one's passed me by. I can see. Let's have a look what Rob's saying. Is Bob still experiencing the phenomenon? Yeah, he is, to some degree. Not as much at the moment, Rob, but you know, Michael, who we met last night, you know, Michael asked him that same question and asked him some of the things that he'd experienced in that, you know, in that, what used to be bedrooms, but it's now top floor flat. And yeah, there's still things happening. But don't you think, Rob, you know, I'm aiming this at you, but everybody else as well, we go through periods where there's just nothingness, sometimes with years and years in between, and then suddenly it just ramps up. I wish we could suss out the ingredients of why it ramps up and why the activity. Maybe there isn't a reason. Maybe it's just whatever it is that wants to connect just does it, and that's its chosen time. Or is it something within us as human beings that suddenly ignited it? You know, and I say that with reason to some of these reports that I get, and some of them are years and years old, and the person who's writing to me and sharing that information with me has said, I've never really spoke about it in years and years, and I feel confident enough to share it with you, and I want to. And then they've said to me, I feel like it knows. I feel like whatever it was that we saw, whatever it was we experienced, is somehow awake or being alerted. And is that just apprehension on the human thing? I don't know. I really don't know. Or is there some truth to it? Are we connecting to it via the power of our own minds? And, it's only a thought process away. We talked about the hitchhiker effect, haven't we? Where people think that this thing attaches itself to you and travels with you to your chosen place, your home. And I don't think it does. I think that the experience that you might have in one of these locations is sometimes so profound, or the thought of the experience is so profound, that all you've got to do when you get back to your home or the place you're staying is start thinking about it. And I don't think it knows time and distance. I just think it can be there within thought. You know, I think that's the hitchhiker effect is still a great word, but I just think it's a thought process away. And these are only my thoughts. Doesn't mean I'm right. Right, let's have a look. Paul, do sightings at Bempton increase in the summer or decrease? Sam, good to see you, Sam. It's hard to say because, we're in June and it's usually very, very active. And I noted with all 4 truth proof books, reading, documenting people's accounts, that June, throughout the years, throughout the decades, were probably the most prolific month. Then you get to December and February, and they seem quite active. But guess what's happened this June? Nothing. Flatline. There's absolutely nothing. So it's difficult to say, Sam. And, we'll still get them trips. This guy's travelled all over the world, people. A lot more places than I'll ever go, I think. But interesting man. We've still got a few little adventures to do, Sam, I think. I hope so. Let's have a look. Fortean. We believe the cryptid UFO anomalies are from another frequency. Why leave their realm? What's in ours that encourages or forces them to break cover? Food, or are they searching for something else? It's a great question, isn't it? I mean, there's a few questions to unpack there in one, and I haven't got an answer to why maybe they just want to explore. Imagine if it's a thin area. And they're only hypothesizing, aren't we? But imagine if it is a thin area and they inadvertently they're just passing through it without actually knowing, or they know when they were there, but without actually being aware. There's got to be these thin areas, aren't they, when you think about it, Chris? Because let's stick with cryptid. And what's happening when people see the Bigfoot or some cryptid creature pass behind a tree that's that wide and not come out at the other side and not go anywhere? I mean, obviously, we've not just seen it materialize into thin air, but it's weird. It's disappeared into something, hasn't it? But why would they come? Is it for food? Is it sheer interest? I don't know. What are they? Or are they searching for something else? And that last part of the question, are they searching for something else, could be where the answer lies, to be honest with you, because we can only measure things through human eyes, through our own barometer, through our own gauge. And what's something from another world or another sphere of existence, or even an animal? We can't think how they think. We can only perceive how we think that they're thinking. When dog's barking at me and wagging its tail, and I'm talking to it, he hasn't really got a clue what I'm saying. He knows. He knows when I'm not happy. He knows when he's going to get fed. He knows everything regarding that. They do understand that, but he'll not understand the conversation, will he? Probably can't understand me now, you guys. But just right. Let's have a go. Oh God, look at time. Let's just do this. Let's just go a little bit further. There's your Deborah's question. Yep. Experiences have already had their own disclosure. You're spot on, Deborah. I knew in 1967 they were real. My whole family saw the craft above our home. I don't need the government to tell me they are real. Experiences already know. I think that Deborah's question has answered it for us all. I mean, we're all talking about disclosure as though if we got it, what would it mean, disclosure? And I'm asking myself that question as well. What would it mean? Would it just mean validation for all 400 people in chat tonight that we told you, we knew? Is that all we're wanting? Because as Deborah says, we already know the reality. The reality of something. I don't know what they are, Deborah, and I'm not sure anybody does, but we know that there's a reality that's external to our own. I already know that those things that visited me as a child weren't part of the world as I know it. I didn't know then. It took a little bit of time to sort of work that one out. As a little boy didn't understand that. They just sort of caught in headlights. But we already know that whatever it is that's interacting is external to whatever it is we are and what we're about. So what are we wanting from disclosure? Are we just wanting the people in the know, the people that are capable of delivering that knowledge to the nation, rather than a UFO researcher, rather than somebody at a conference talking about it, and not that doesn't have enough push, does it? It can't just ripple out and tell the world. Do we need a big government body to tell the world? We don't. I don't. Deborah doesn't, and I'm not sure that you guys do either. Would it just be for validation to sort of say to all the people that have just rolled their eyes when I've said I've seen these beings as a child, and all the people that have rolled their eyes when you've said you've seen a UFO or a cryptid? Would it mean that you could look at them and go, what do you think now? Maybe that's all disclosure means to you or me. I don't know. Great question, Deborah. John Allen, let's just have a look. 1423, yes, I think it's about the same entities and other reality beings coming into our reality. It's all about frequency barriers and portals, if they come in physically as solids. Okay, John, thank you. Deborah's got another. It might be the same question, this. Yeah, obviously it's just come up twice, that. So there we go. I'm just running down, guys. Let's have a look. I'm not sure what that applies to. No, Paul, I was wondering if that was part of your encounter. Okay. Well, I'll have to have a think about that, because obviously I'm not going to go backwards now. Alternate realities similar to ours, but a little different. I just want to just run through quickly. I know we're just about there, guys, but thanks for staying with it. We've had between, I don't know, 380 and 420 people in, and it's great to have your support. May do another one on Thursday. May not as well, but I don't want to commit myself to Thursdays, because that just means then every Thursday, obviously, I've got to be up at 4:30 to put a live stream on at 5. But if I'm up, so most likely I'll do one on Thursday. But I won't be advertising it, guys. It'll just be going out there on Thursday. Let's just have a look. Tim. I appreciate is the usual go-to question. Has Bob considered hypnotic regression? Seems a strong case for abduction. I understand the reasons for being resistant. I've never asked him, Tim, if I'm being honest. So it's something I've never asked him. I've mixed feelings about hypnotic regression. I wonder how much you could actually enhance your story unknowingly and think that maybe happened. And I don't know. I'd sort of stick to facts that I know personally. And then there's the other part of looking at it. And Deborah, who's in now, a very good friend of mine and a very, very close friend of Deborah's, were Derek Tyler, and a lovely guy. And Derek's knowledge surpassed mine by far. And he knew things in real depth and detail. And I remember talking about hypnotic regression to Derek, and Derek said to me that, sometimes these things happen because you're not meant to remember. Probably what happened may have been too horrific to remember. Do you know, to allow you to remember. So there's those aspects. You be careful what you wish for, kind of thing, Right, Tim, let's just have a look. We're sort of just about out of time. Let's have a look. Paul, did you ever visit the Venton tunnels, and do you have any stories? Man like Dave. 1990s, yes, but not since. And when I wrote the first book, which is, I may as well get a little plug here. That book, I contacted the farmer when he allowed me to go on and take pictures. Not below ground. It's all sealed off, by the way. It's out of bounds. It's on private land. I say it every time, but it's keen. I'm keen to stress it. There's livestock on that land. You're on edge of 300 to 400 foot cliffs. Last thing you want is livestock on them cliffs. A, nobody wants to lose the livestock, and B, you just don't want them on cliff tops. So I suggest to everybody that has an idea or an inkling to go onto that site to stay away, because it's out of bounds. But I contacted him years ago when I wrote first book, and there were no livestock on in winter time, I think, and I went on and took pictures, and they were kind enough to do that. So that's as that one. But as regards, do I have any stories? Yeah, there's a lot of stories, to be honest with you, and I've got a lot of stories that we've never told from the fishermen who've been on the cliff tops on a night, with literally behind that base. But that's going back decades. And, we may talk about them one day, may sort of cover them, I don't know. But thanks for that, Dave. But remember, it's out of bounds. Let's have a look, Mika. Any more info regarding the conversations with Rick Allen? You will be showing it soon. Thanks. We've got to do it. We've done 2 interviews. The first one, we were probably just feeling ground, and it's not going to be used, I don't think. The second one, we knew where we were going, because I wanted to really get, as if Rick's in here now, he'll know what I'm talking about. Rick's got really, really strong opinions, and to a point where he ruffles people's feathers, and it's not all as good. He knows that. I said to Lee and I said to Gemma, if Rick comes in and is winding people up, just remove him. I don't mean I fell out with him, but we're not there for winding people up. But to the interviews, we've got a structure and we know where we're going with him. And I want to take Rick right back to earliest beginning, so that people know Rick and understand Rick and why he is at this point in his life now. So, Mika, good question. We've done 1 interview, and there's another. We've done 2, but there's only one worth using, I reckon, at the moment. But we've another 2 to do, and we will do them. And you'll see a different side as well to the man that is Rick, I hope. And like him or dislike him, he won't be bothered. But the point is that I want to do these interviews just to get his point of it. I don't agree with everything he says, I'll be honest with you, but it don't mean that what he's got to say is not valid and not of use to some people. There you go, Rick. I don't know what your thoughts are that. Right, let's look. Could you try and get an interview with Frank Milburn? Okay. If you know Frank Milburn, you see whether you can set something up and tell me what he's about, because as you can gather from me saying that, I'm not really sure. Let's have a look. When you do live streams, sometime we're directed by higher self to wake up and listen in. Thank you, John. Yeah, and I'm going to, on that note, mate, I'm going to wake up and listen in. I see Thudders in, Bev Wilson and Patrick Collins. I'm going to leave it on that note, I think, guys. It's 6 minutes past 9 here in UK. We're going to see you next Sunday. May see you Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your night. And what I'm going to say now is good night and thank you very much. Bye-bye. Is this an adventure or what? We don't need unexplained phenomena. I hope you guys are enjoying this journey we're taking you on. I know you come expecting to hear about big cats, cryptids, UFOs. We will touch on some of that, but I think it's worth sharing some of this with you, don't you? There's only 2 living souls up here today.
Because I can see it in my mind, I can see it in my head what I saw, but I can't describe.
Our eyes was closed, like a brightish light in my face, and I just felt paralysed.
Someone said there's something out there, so we had a look. It looked like a walnut. That's the only way I can describe it.
It was like it had loads of tiny little windows all over it, and it had lights in those windows, but not a light that illuminates.
Anyway, we were ushered into this lounge. This fella came in, he said, whatever you saw was a weather effect.
And everything is deathly silent. There's no sea, there's no wind, there's no night noise, because, you know, there's foxes all over here. There's nothing.